Hello, everybody. Here we are, the start of a new year and the end of an old year, a year of movies. I saw a bunch of movies in 2022, and I've arranged my favorites into a list for you. Let's get started. A Belgian coming-of-age story, Close, the Polish donkey movie E.O., and the Irish film The Quiet Girl are the foreign language movies that some people say are the best of the year, and they aren't even in limited release until like February. I was looking forward to Living, starring Bill Nye, ever since it premiered at Sundance last January. It's a British remake of the Kurosawa film Akiru. I hear it's very good. I also wanted to see The Sun, starring Hugh Jackman, but it got pushed from November until late January. But none of those upset me nearly as much as Women Talking. You mean the movie, Women Talking? The latest film from Sarah Polley, based on the novel Women Talking. It was supposed to release on Christmas, but they also pushed it back to late January. I hear it's one of the best movies of the year. Oh well. Fire of Love. This is a National Geographic love story documentary about two humans that love lava and each other. It's the only documentary I watched. It wins by default. Alright, now we're on to the actual top 10. "2022 wasn't a great year for comedy, but there were a few good ones. Channing Tatum brought heart and hilarity to the Canine Buddy road trip, Dog. Bella Ramsey gave a lively performance as Catherine called Birdie, and Lena Dunham's script features memorable moments of wit. See How They Run was a whodunit farce set in the world of 1950s British theater, and Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, was even more fun than the first Knives Out because Daniel Craig gets to take more center stage. And Daniel Radcliffe continued to make bold career choices by taking on the role of Weird Al Yankovic in Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. But when it comes to 2022's zany comedies, the one that comes to mind is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Nick Cage stars as Nick Cage, a washed-up actor in debt and desperate need of another gig, gets hired by a superfan, played by Pedro Pascal. It's wild, hilarious, meta buddy comedy filled with references to Nick Cage's filmography. It's crazy that the movie even exists. That's why it's my favorite fun comedy of 2022. "2022 was a solid year for animated movies, even if Disney dropped the ball. Turning Red was easily the best animated offering from the House of Mouse. The Bad Guys provided a Soderbergh-style crime heist for kids of all ages. The Sea Beast was a swashbuckling adventure on par with anything made by Walt Disney Animation Studios over the past decade. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish genuinely shocked me with how entertaining and thoughtful it was. Apollo 10.5: A Space-Age Childhood was a captivating Richard Linklater nostalgia trip to the moon and to his upbringing. But my favorite animated movie of 2022, I actually couldn't decide. That's right, it's a tie between Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. These two films captured my heart. They each took several years to make. They each feature adorable, innocent stop-motion protagonists trying to make sense of a fascinating new world, trying to find their place within it, and learning the importance of friends, family, and loss along the way. They're amazing examples of craft and innovation. I love them both, and they both deserve to be called my favorite animated movie of 2022. These are basically the only movies that general audiences paid to see. Wonder what kind of message that sends to financiers. Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4 were the latest status quo reinforcements from Marvel that I didn't care for. Avatar 2 reminded me that no matter how impressive his films are on a technical level, I don't care about James Cameron's naked blue alien cat people because his movies are terribly written. Top Gun 2 was admittedly a well-crafted action summer blockbuster if you can get past the Star Wars level writing and the blatant propaganda for the US Navy and Boeing. Bullet Train had enough stylized action and humor to make for a decent live-action anime experience. Prey, the prequel to Predator set in the northern Great Plains of the early 1700s, was actually pretty cool. Featured exciting action, a largely indigenous cast, and was the first feature film to be fully dubbed in Comanche. And I had an absolute blast at Violent Night, a Santa Claus's John Wick Christmas movie that fully leans into the absurdity of its B-movie premise. But there was one action franchise flick that came out early in 2022 and never was surpassed, and that flick was The Batman. This gritty, violent comic book adaptation is my favorite Batman movie. The entire cast is great, especially Paul Dano as the Riddler, and the city of Gotham has never felt more alive on screen. Viewing Gotham as a microcosm of the United States, the film's themes really resonated with me. I'm more than satisfied with the darker direction they're taking the franchise, and that's why it's my pick for IP action flick of 2022. It was a great year for horrors and thrillers, and I say that as someone who's not typically a fan of the genre. Ty West and Mia Goth gave us two sexually charged period horrors with X and Pearl. Ethan Hawke creeped me the F out with his performance as a masked child abductor in The Black Phone. Barbarian was a bold, original horror debut from the mind of Zach Krieger of The Whitest Kids You Know. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was easily the funniest horror film of the year, with commentary on youth culture and privilege. Bones and All was a hauntingly beautiful coming-of-age romance between two cannibals during the 1980s. And Jordan Peele's third feature, Nope, was a multi-layered blockbuster sci-fi horror that took audiences on a wild ride and asked us to think about the power of spectacle. It was my favorite suspenseful thrill ride this year until I saw The Menu. While by no means the scariest film of the year, this biting psychological horror is my favorite because it features mouth-watering food imagery and a pitch-perfect performance from Ralph Fiennes as a psychopathic world-renowned chef who invites a select group of unsuspecting wealthy diners to his exclusive restaurant for a night of maniacal meals and surprises. It's great. Every year, audiences are treated to cinematic retellings of real events, stories, and characters. Some of 2022's most entertaining and enlightening were Argentina 1985, which dramatizes the events surrounding the trial of the Juntas. Till, in which Daniel Deadwyler broke hearts with her tour de force performance as Emmett Till's mother. With Elvis, Baz Luhrmann infused his distinct, glamorous style of filmmaking into the history of Elvis Presley. The Good Nurse terrified me with its story of Charlie Cullen, a serial killer nurse who got away with murdering countless patients of his. And 13 Lives conventionally but proficiently depicts the inspirational heroism of the Tham Duong cave rescue. But if there's any non-fiction movie this year that deserves to be on my list, it has to be She Said. As a fan of investigative journalism procedurals like All the President's Men, Zodiac, Spotlight, The Post, it should come as no surprise that I thought this film was excellent. It's about the New York Times reporters who exposed Harvey Weinstein and helped launch the Me Too movement. The film really shines during the interview scenes, the cast is excellent, and director Maria Schrader handles the material with precision and care. This was one of the best films of 2022, and by far the most important history lesson told on the big screen this last year. These are fictional films of 2022 that demanded your attention, didn't hold your hand, but offered rewarding experiences for those willing to put in an effort. Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry are great as trauma survivors in the hangout drama Causeway. Aubrey Plaza gets pulled into the Los Angeles criminal underworld to pay off her student loan debt in Emily the Criminal. Mark Rylance was great in The Outfit, a tense drama about a man running a tailor shop in 1950s Chicago who gets entangled with the mob. Brendan Fraser gave the most emotionally moving performance of his career and of the year in The Whale, a story about a reclusive, morbidly obese English teacher. And Decision to Leave was a meticulous, hyper-stylized noir romance about a detective who falls for the femme fatale he's investigating. But there was no slow burn psychological drama released in 2022 quite like Todd Field's Tar. Cate Blanchett gives the performance of her career as Lydia Tarr, a conductor-composer leading the Berlin Philharmonic. It's one of the best character studies of the last decade plus. Lydia Tarr is a cold, conniving, pretentious, manipulative bitch with layers of complexity. The film reflects on cancel culture, power, legacy, and our understanding of what it means to be an artist. It's an abundantly rewarding test of patience, and that's why it's my top pick for slow burn drama of 2022. Most action films nowadays are focused on providing fun thrills wrapped in brand packaging, but there are standouts that equally bring both action and melodrama. As far as Michael Bay movies, Ambulance was a surprisingly decent thrill ride with excellent car chase action to make up for the plot's absurdity. Likewise, Antoine Fuqua's Emancipation was also surprisingly decent, about a runaway slave being chased through the swamps of Louisiana during the Civil War. The Woman King was an African historical epic with stunning battle sequences and commanding performances from Viola Davis and newcomer Thuso Mbidu. Robert Eggers made his most accessible film yet with The Northman, a trippy, visceral Viking Hamlet with outstanding visuals. And the German adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front made for a harrowing experience by updating the literary masterpiece with modern technical film prowess. But there was one action drama this past year that provided an experience unlike anything I personally ever had, and that film was the phenomenal RRR. This movie is the epitome of awesome. It's got over-the-top, physics-defying action, there's musical numbers, there's bromance, there's anti-colonial revisionist history. Every time I rewatch this movie, I'm grinning from cheek to cheek with just how awesome it is and how cohesive it is. The film is 3 hours long, but you don't feel the runtime at all. My only regret is that I've never had a chance to watch it on the big screen with a large crowd. For me, without question, this was the best epic action drama of 2022. One of cinema's unique trends in 2022 was a bunch of directors were given the opportunity to tell their own personal stories. Alejandro González Iñárritu got to explore his identity as an artist and as a Mexican in his surreal film, Bardo, False Chronicles of a Handful of Truths. With The Inspection, Elegance Bratton got to share his experience in Marine boot camp during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era. Steven Spielberg made one of the most sentimental films of his career with The Fabelmans, an autobiography that tells the story of his childhood and how he became a director. Likewise, James Gray explored the origins of his artistry as the descendant of a Ukrainian Jewish immigrant family in his film Armageddon Time. But the director's memoir that had the most profound effect on me was Charlotte Wells' debut feature, Aftersun. It's hard to articulate what it is about Aftersun that makes it so compelling and spellbinding. It deals with the director's fractured memories as an 11-year-old girl spending a vacation with a 31-year-old father. We, the audience, are tasked with making sense of what we're witnessing. I slowly grew emotionally connected to this film by the end, and I left the theater a sobbing mess. No other single director told their own story with such profundity. That's why it's my pick for Director's Memoir of the Year. 2022 might not have had a great slew of lighthearted comedies, but there was no shortage of great dramatic comedies to enjoy. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris was a delightful dramedy about a common woman wishing to buy a luxurious Dior dress. Triangle of Sadness went straight for the jugular with its often hilarious and scathing critique of the ultra-wealthy. Damien Chazelle made the most expensive screw you letter to Hollywood ever with his mythos-tarnishing romp, Babylon. Adam Sandler made yet another slam dunk with his earnest performance in the exceptional sports film, Hustle. And On the Count of Three was a true morbid comedy about two best friends who make a suicide pact and decide how to spend the last day of their lives. But none of them came close to the latest from dark comedy maestro and long-lost Irish Coen brother, Martin McDonagh, and the number 2 spot on my list, The Banshees of Inisherin. I'm a massive fan of In Bruges, so I was eagerly anticipating the reunion of Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson in a new Martin McDonagh movie. 14 years later, this is a spiritual successor to their previous film, as that saw them becoming good friends, and this one opens with Gleeson's character abruptly deciding he no longer wishes to be friends with Farrell's character. It's the simplest premise in the world, but they take it to truly unexpected places. It becomes an existential Irish folklore fable. It's hilarious and haunting, and the script is an absolute masterpiece. It would be my favorite film of 2022 if there wasn't another film that completely blew me away. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I was already a fan of the director duo known as Daniels from their previous work, but nothing could prepare me for the experience that was EEAAO, as it's commonly referred to as. The film's eccentric and frenetic qualities might be too much for some audiences, but I love everything about this movie. The first time I watched it in the theater, I seriously contemplated that I had died, and that it was a hallucination my brain was generating. As someone with ADHD and severe depression, often brought on by existential quandaries, this film had an arrow aimed right at my heart. The Kung Fu was as good as any Jackie Chan movie I watched as a kid. I laughed so much my sides hurt, and the film's exploration of the quantum importance of kindness and the family drama at the center of it all made me bawl my eyes out. There was no cinematic experience in 2022 quite like EEAAO. It's a work of art, and one that felt tailor-made for me. That so many filmgoers from around the world connected with it similarly shows that the movie needed to exist, and I'm so thankful that it does. Thank you, Daniels, for making my favorite film of 2022. Well, there you have it, folks. My top 10 movies of 2022. What did you think? If you liked this video, let me know by doing normal YouTube stuff like commenting, subscribing, liking the video, sending me money. Have a great 2023, everybody. And as always, thanks for stopping by.